Hi, welcome to the Comics and More podcast. I'm Patrick Markfort from Articulate Nerd.
And I'm Dave Ferraro from Comics and More. And we recently did a whole DC 4-week coverage on the new 52, so we decided to go look at Marvel's relaunch of their Ultimate line this week. So we're going to be reviewing Ultimate Comics Ultimates, Hawkeye, X-Men, and Spider-Man. And we'll begin with the first title that came out from the new relaunch. And that's going to be Ultimate Comics The Ultimates. Here is the first issue of that comic. And if you don't know already, Ultimates features it's kind of like the ultimate version of the Avengers. And this one is written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Esad Ribic. Alright, so basically Ultimates kind of sets the stage for what is going on in the Ultimate Comics universe now. It follows up with the Ultimate line where it kind of ended off with the death of Spider-Man. And some kind of shifting things that kind of happened with Captain America kind of stepping down and stuff like that. So this picks up the pieces with some of the main players in that universe. Primarily Nick Fury. This is kind of like a Nick Fury title with S.H.I.E.L.D. and what is going on with kind of just navigating the world, pretty much. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like the world police. In that title, the big players are Iron Man and Thor for the Avengers currently, and there's a little cameo with Hawkeye as well. Basically, this takes place in the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, where Nick Fury is kind of trying to figure out what's going on for the day. And there's several catastrophes that kind of happen at once, that kind of sets the stage for what is happening across the different books in the Ultimate line right now. So the big primary thing that's happening is that there are some it's like these humans that kind of sequestered themselves in like this dome, and they've evolved very quickly, and they just kind of built their technology. They've like experimented with genetics, all kind of like scientific things, so they're kind of like ahead of where the human race is right now. They're almost like a different species. They're what we're going to become in the future, allegedly. And basically, they're kind of coming out of the bubble now. And the first people that they encounter are... there's a lot going on, kind of. Europe has this team of superheroes, kind of modeling themselves after Captain America, it seems like. There's a Captain of France, Captain Britain, as we all know. And they have this team that kind of goes to this dome to investigate, and they're kind of pulled in by this race, and there's a big battle that kind of escalates from there. And just a side note on that, I guess there was a Captain Britain that was Brian Braddock, as we know Captain Britain in the main Marvel Universe line, and apparently he's died in the Ultimate books at some point, and now bad idea, Jamie Braddock is the new Captain Britain in this universe. And as we know from the Marvel Universe line, he kind of goes crazy and becomes a villain, so you can probably see where that's going to go in this title eventually.
I also like that they called that group of heroes led by Captain Britain Excalibur class superhumans.
I was actually very excited about that,
right?
Because I'm a huge Excalibur fan. So it's like, Excalibur, yes, I'm Captain Britain. So, and so Thor is a part of this big thing, investigating this too. I forget exactly what happens with the Asgardians, but there are Asgardians at the beginning of it. And then you
don't want to forget that.
Into the second issue, these new evolved humans that are not very human anymore kind of go after the Asgardians because they see their power. They see they're not like the humans who are imperfect, and they want to kind of harness their energy and kind of stop them from it seems like honing in on what they're ruling of the world, pretty much. Mm-hmm. It seems like they just want to take over the world, like every good villain, I guess.
Yep.
Wow. And then there's also this other thing going on with Iron Man. There's some kind of, I don't know exactly what's going on, but there's some kind of a war brewing on the border. And Iron Man has, he goes to a party and via some kind of a satellite, it seems like he activates his Iron Man suit and an army of Iron Man suits to kind of go after this boat that's kind of attacking. And it turns out that Stark technology is being used, and they do something where it's kind of like an ambush for the Iron Man armors, I guess, the suits, and he basically dies and is brought back to life by his new Jarvis. There's just so much going on in this. It's kind of ridiculous. It was just like page after page of this. But basically, there's something going on politically there. Hawkeye's involved in that, and we kind of see the Hawkeye book you'll get to later. Actually, there's some crossover with the conversation that Nick Fury has with him via satellite. So yeah, a lot is going on in this. I like the introduction of these new villains. It's a little generic at this point, like with they're almost like Inhumans, kind of, you know what I mean, or any other like evolved species that we've seen in comics.
Clever. Did you read Ultimate Fallout?
I did read Ultimate Fallout.
Okay, so you know the origins of these guys.
I don't recall it, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't really need to know for this.
Well, go ahead and...
Well, the maker, you know,
yeah.
is Reed Richards.
Oh, okay.
The ultimate version of Reed Richards, who has created this race of superhumans. And basically the idea is he's brought this group of people together, constructed this dome, and time passes differently inside the dome than it does outside. Mm-hmm. So obviously the maker is still around. So Reed Richards is still
And Reed Richards went crazy in this
universe? He's like a bad guy in this universe. So like 1,000 years has passed inside this dome, and now they are emerging into the actual world, and that's when they encounter the Ultimates. So I don't know. I thought it was a pretty great concept, like this team of superpowered mad scientists, genetic, people, basically a whole civilization that's evolved separately from the rest of humanity, created by Reed Richards. I thought was a pretty compelling concept.
That's cool, I guess. I don't know. I guess I feel like Inhumans are kind of like, they come from another world, but I mean, I feel like they're like genetically and technologically superior. They've been sequestered. They were like off on their own.
Yeah,
I mean, came out.
Sure.
I mean,
I guess I thought this was an interesting twist on it.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty neat, I feel like. I feel like of all the books, I feel like the Hickman books this week were actually the weaker ones. I don't know, like you'll get to Hawkeye soon too, but I also feel like the art in those weren't up to snuff as compared to the other ones.
Really? You didn't like
they just didn't leave much of an impression.
Esad Ribic artwork in Ultimates?
Yeah, it was okay, but it didn't leave much of an impression on me. I did like some of the designs for like the characters and stuff. I don't know if he'd worked on any of the designs with some of those Captain characters, but I don't know. It was nothing that left an impression on me.
So you're just kind of on Ultimates?
Ultimates, I mean, there were some cool things in it, but I feel like it was pretty much just setting the stage for, it was pretty much like, this is happening here, this is happening here, this is happening here. Go check out these other books. You know what I mean, a little bit?
Yeah,
but then the
issue was definitely like that.
The second issue gets more into what's going on with these genetic, versus the captains and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that stuff is pretty compelling. But, I don't know, the first issue was set up, the second issue gets into some cooler places, but I feel like they get overshadowed by the books by Nick Spencer and by Brian Michael Bendis for the initial launch of the Ultimate line, at least.
All right. Well, I liked Ultimates, I think, a lot more than you did. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Jonathan Hickman on this show before. Sure. In fact, we had an entire episode dedicated to the work of Jonathan Hickman, and he's obviously one of the primary architects that Marvel has brought in on this new Ultimates project. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Ultimates.
Okay.
I think you're right. The first issue of Ultimates was basically kind of a state of the Ultimate Universe kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where it was centered on Nick Fury in S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, kind of monitoring all these various global situations and the superhumans who were working for S.H.I.E.L.D., who were involved with them. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, here's what's going on with Hawkeye, which obviously spins out into the Hawkeye book. Here's what's going on with Captain Britain and the Asgardians. Here's what's going on with Iron Man. And it was all centered on Nick Fury kind of, checking in on all of these various global crises.
Being overwhelmed and...
Yeah, which I think is kind of, that kind of pulled back, kind of widescreen approach is somewhat characteristic of what I've seen from Hickman, He's kind of... The Ultimates is very much not a book about a centralized single team of heroes, at least at this point. In fact, I couldn't even really tell someone who are the members of the Ultimates. It doesn't seem to be so much about a particular team as it is about S.H.I.E.L.D.'s employment of all of these superheroes in various different ways across the globe. So they've got the Excalibur class heroes, including Captain Britain.
But it doesn't...
Multiple giant men were mentioned at one point. Obviously, Iron Man and Thor are considered to be Ultimates, but they're not like, it's, you know what I mean? There's not like a team. It's not like 4 or 5 guys are the Ultimates and that's what this book is about.
But it could come into that,
It might turn into that, yeah, but like right now, it's more about like just Nick Fury and how he uses these superheroes in these various different ways.
Now, it seemed like the Excalibur team was something different. There was some kind of an animosity between, like, the American-run S.H.I.E.L.D. and Europe's team.
Yeah.
Like, there's some kind of, just tension between them.
Yeah, so it's just kind of about, it's like, they could call this book, like, The Ultimate Universe, or Ultimate Universe Presents, or Nick Fury or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, at this point, because it has a very wide lens. So the first issue just kind of introduced that concept and that approach, and I liked it. I thought it was cool. I think Hickman's good at those kinds of stories. You know, that's the kind of expansive approach he took to FF, where it started out as Fantastic Four, just about these 4 characters, and now it's about something much larger than that. So I feel like he's taking that kind of expansive approach to Ultimates. And it's kind of the flagship book of this line, I feel like, so it's appropriate that it is about not just the Ultimates, but about the Ultimate Universe. So then, though, when I read the second issue, I was really sold on it. I mean, I don't know. I guess I thought it was a lot cooler of a story than you. I mean, the story of this group of super scientists created by Reed Richards who live separately from humanity for 1,000 years and have now emerged into the real world in immediate conflict with the Ultimates. Then, when they encounter Thor, they see something they've never seen before, a god, and they basically are like, well, we need to analyze where his power comes from, and we need to cut off the source of Thor's power. And then these super scientists proceed to go to Asgard, have a big battle with Odin, and I won't spoil how it ends, but I don't know. For me, I guess you didn't like it as much, but I think if you like big widescreen superhero stories, I kind of dare you not to want to read the 3rd issue after you've read the 2nd issue of Ultimates. For me, I don't know. It's like super scientists created by a mad Reed Richards in battle against the Asgardians. Thor and Iron Man and Captain Britain are along for the ride. To me, that's good comics. I like the art by Esad Ribic too. I thought it was a really appealing style. I thought it looked good. I do think some of the battle sequences were a little difficult to parse at times, so that kind of slowed it down a little bit. But mostly, I thought this was a really cool approach to a superhero team book, and a really neat story with these bad guys that battle the Asgardians at the end. I mean, didn't you think there was like a cool idea?
It was a cool idea, yeah. And I feel like them versus Asgard was pretty cool.
Yeah, man, I loved it. And I thought like Hickman is like, he's kind of like an FF. He takes a really long time to lead up to these big battles.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought he would take that approach with Ultimates, but no, he is right into it. There's like gods versus science, and I mean, it's a big brawl in the 2nd issue. I loved it.